Hello. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're staying cool. It's a little bit cooler in the Northwest today. Not by much, but we're not going to break 100 today. And then it cools down tomorrow. So those 100-degree plus days that we've been having, looks like we're done with that, at least for the time being. But I hope you guys are drinking plenty of water and surviving this heat wave. Real quick before I get into my last LFO video here. Some of you are reporting that your comments are disappearing. This has been happening the last few days. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what to tell you. I really don't delete comments. It's very rare when I do. In fact, in the 3 years I've done this channel, I think I've only deleted 3 or 4 comments. And that was because they just were abusive. They were either swearing or saying something racist or, just bad shit. No matter how dumb someone's comment is, I leave it. And there are plenty of dumb comments. Trust me on that. So I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry your comments are disappearing. I'm assuming that YouTube deletes shit sometimes. Are you posting links? That's the only time I've seen them delete stuff, is when they post links. They're also very picky about words too. It depends. It depends on what you say. There are some hot button words that I had to learn the hard way about that really, in and of themselves, there's nothing wrong with the word, but because we live in this age and time that we live in where you can get canceled for anything virtually, sometimes words that have always been fine are all of a sudden not fine. So I apologize if some of your comments are getting deleted. I don't know what to tell you on that. And speaking of comments too, really quickly, I've said this before, but I leave information out because I'm trying to do these videos in 20 or 25 minutes or less. I can't possibly mention every little detail. So I keep saying this. Some of you are probably sick of hearing it. The vast majority of you don't even comment. There's only really 3 or 4 dozen of you that comment on a regular basis. The rest of my other 900 subscribers never say a word. So listen, I can't possibly bring up every little thing. I'm just never going to do it. And I think it's the human condition to just post comments and try to make the person who's talking look bad, or you guys want to have the last word, or you guys want to know something that I don't. I read everybody's comments, and if someone leaves a comment that I just think is annoying, I'm not going to respond. I'm not going to delete it. I'm just not going to respond to it. So if you're leaving comments and I'm not responding, it's because you're annoying me. And that's not the case across the board. Time is becoming a factor. I can't respond to every single comment, and I'm sorry for that. But some of you, a couple of you, I shouldn't even say some of you, a couple of you just love playing devil's advocate, and it's really tired, man. I'm over it. Come on, man. If you know things that you think I don't know because I'm not talking about it, go start your own channel. YouTube will welcome you with open arms. And if you want to challenge me to a music trivia contest, bring it on. I will beat you. Trust me, I will beat you. Ask any restaurant or bar in the Portland, Oregon area. Anytime there's a music trivia night, I win. I don't get second, I don't get third, I get first. By myself. I'll beat teams of 5 people, 6, 7 people. I will beat them by myself. So if you want to have a general music trivia knowledge quiz or test with me, bring it on. You're going to lose. Okay? For whatever reason, my mom pushed me out of her womb, and I was born to have music trivial knowledge. That is what I'm on this earth to do. And I'm not talking about one specific genre. I'm talking about all genres. So if you want to have a generalized music trivia test, bring it on. I'll beat you. I'm getting tired of these online bullies mentioning these comments in my comment section. Like, you didn't talk about this. I stand up to bullies. There are a few of you too who are just like, ignore it. No. I will never ignore what is wrong. Okay? Why do you think we're having these fucking heat waves in this country? Because we ignore stuff. Horrible, terrible things happen because we choose to ignore things and be apathetic about it. I'm not going to ignore bullies and snobs, okay? Not going to do it. I was raised to stick up for myself and fight back if I have to. And I will always do that, even here on my YouTube channel. So if you want to have the last word and you think you know something that I don't, bring it on. I will crush you. I mean, Jesus, why do you think I do this channel to begin with? Because I can sit here like a savant and recite information about music. I talk about music because I don't think it's being covered on YouTube. You want Pink Floyd knowledge? I can give it to you. Peter Gabriel, Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, Beatles. I can give you all that knowledge too. Bring it on. I have no doubt someone who's a total Beatles maniac could outdo me in just Beatles knowledge. I'm talking about a generalized music trivia night. I will crush you. So stop it with your comments. You're driving me nuts. I think that you forgot. People drive me nuts. All right, let's get to the music though, shall we? This is enough of this. Enough of this ranting. I just, if someone thinks they're being interesting with devil's advocate responses, really? That's a tired, old, cliched way of business, man. Evolve past that, will you? I have. You should too. All right. Let's get to the music, shall we? Fucking morons. Oh. Did you hear that? Must be a draft in here. I heard something. So, LFO, idiots. Was that you? It wasn't me. Boy, I could have swore I heard something. Anyway, I want to get to LFO now, dipshits. Keep it down over there. I'm trying to talk. I'm doing a video. Yeah, fuck you too. LFO, Sheath. Oh, how I love this album. I do love it so. This is Mark Bell's last record. He continued to do productions after this, but this was his last LFO record, and Jez Varley definitely was not a part of this at all. I think he had minuscule things to do with Advance, but this was like a Mark Bell solo album. He had already produced Depeche Mode's Exciter, and he had already produced Bjork's Homogenic, and done plenty of remix work and all kinds of other productions when this came out. This came out in 2003. I think Homogenic came out in 97, and then Exciter came out in 2001. So I think people definitely knew who Mark Bell was. I remember thinking between the time Advance and Sheath came out, which was 7 years, over 7 years really, almost 8 years, I remember thinking, well, Mark Bell is the go-to producer now. He's the guy who works with Bjork and Depeche Mode, and his sound has probably changed. It's probably softened a little bit. Stands to reason, probably would. No. When I got this and dropped this down on the turntable and took the needle and threw it down on the vinyl, I was fucking blown away. This is an incredible album. You get a little embossed LFO Sheath right there. You see that? This is an amazing album. Last week I talked about Yellow's Pocket Universe as kind of being a clinic when it comes to electronic music production. This is right there with it. The production that Mark Bell does on this, you see why all the bigger names were trying to get in on this guy's sound. Technically, this is one of the most insane records I've ever heard in my life. Unbelievable music going on here. I mean, it's crazy. Especially on singles like Freak, and I'll get to Freak. But It's an interesting album. It's really kind of two Mark Bells at work here. It's like borderline punk disco on one song, and then the next song will be this really heartwarming human ambient music, kind of bringing you. To call it ambient though is just lazy. It's Mark Bell. The music he put out just didn't sound like anything else. That's why people wanted a piece of this guy. But it's a record of two moods. Very introspective, very warm, very human mood, and then like an all balls out, all out digital assault on your senses. One song to the next, it's like, wow, Freak will hit you. It's like in your face beats, one of the most intense productions I've ever heard in my life. And then it goes to the next song is like a more down tempo thing. Then it goes to this really warm, ambient, warm blanket washing over you. All kinds of stuff going on. You don't have a moment to breathe on this album. It just hits you, keeps hitting you, keeps hitting you, keeps hitting you, and then it's done. I absolutely adore LFO because their three records are so different from each other. From Frequencies to Advance was a huge advance. You can understand why they call that album Advance. Advance sounds nothing like Frequencies. And then from Advance to this, it's like a different group. It's all electronic music, but it's completely different. His methods are totally different. He chose to go down a completely different path and avenue for this album. Unbelievable record. If you're into electronic music production, you need to hear this. And remember that this came out 20 years ago now. It's 2023. This came out 20 years ago. Pretty much the 20th anniversary. I think this came out around this time. I remember it coming out in the fall of 2003. Stunning production. You will never hear another record like this. Mark Bell was on top of the mountain right here. And I was always bummed that he never did another thing as LFO. It was very disappointing. And those of you, I hope you know this. There might be those of you who don't know this. Mark Bell died about a decade ago. I want to say 2014. I mentioned this in my first LFO video, but he died. He had complications from surgery. Dude was young, man. I mean, I think he was just 40, maybe 41 or 2. I mean, he was not old at all. He still had his whole life ahead of him. And just, freak death. Man, and that one hurt. It stung. Dude's been gone for almost a decade now. It sucks. But you need to check this album out. I really hope that you guys who don't know LFO, I hope you take this journey. And start at the beginning. Start with Frequencies. You'll listen to that now if you've never heard it, and you'll be like, yeah, it sounds dated. It does sound dated. You know, it came out in 1990, 1991. That music is over 30 years old now. They were just getting their footing as producers. But then Advance comes out. That album doesn't sound dated at all. And then this comes out 20 years ago. This album could have been put out today, and it would still blow your mind. There are music producers currently that can't do what's on this record. A watershed moment in electronic production history. Amazing album. Sheath. Oh, man. Let's go through the tracks. I mean, there's a track on here called Mun Man. I think it's the second song. Yeah. Blown, the first song, is kind of this down-tempo ambient jam. And then Mun Man comes in. I don't even want to try to describe Mun Man. It is so killer. The energy on Mun Man, it stands toe-to-toe with anything Aphex Twin ever did. Listen to Mun Man. If you've never heard Sheath, check that track out and tell me that's not one of the most kick-ass electronic songs ever. Mun Man. Monkey Lips, Snot, Moistly, Unafraid to Linger, Sleepy Chicken. These track titles, I mean, are amazing. And then Freak. I mean, Freak is just... If you're an LFO fan, what can you say about Freak? I mean, it stands toe-to-toe with LFO, LFO, the first single from LFO, the classic Leeds Warehouse mix. Freak is kind of, I always thought that was in the same spirit, but just like an updated version of it. There's so much to love on this record. Let me show this. It's Sheath. It kind of comes in this Sheath-like sleeve. You see that little... Oh, I just remembered. Damn it. I don't have it with me. Oh, well. When I bought this from Warp Mart, it wasn't called Bleep back then. It was called Warp Mart. When I ordered this, I got like a stencil set. It says LFO Sheath, and the idea was to lay it down and spray it and make little logos. I should have pulled that out. That would have been fun to show. Sorry, I don't know how rare that is. It's out there. I have one. I never took it out of its packaging. It's just a stencil set. Nothing exciting to see, but it was like the whole Sheath concept. And then LFO logo, the man, side 1. 2 mans for side 2. I know it's men. I know the plural of man is men. I'm playing with words. 2 mans. Somebody will mention that, trust me. The plural of man is men's. Pedantic. Look it up if you have not done so. Here you go. One of the great records of all time. Yes. LFO Sheath. Take the whole journey, man. Start with frequencies and work your way up. You will not regret it. The only single that came from this album was this, Freak. I can't explain it. You want one of the most intense dance experiences you have ever had in your life? Listen to this, number 1. And then number 2, try to listen to it on a very loud system. I remember when I got this very record back in 2003, it must have been around this time. I have memories for dates. I want to say this actually came out like August, September of 2003. When I first played this in a club, it was like a religious experience. And I'm not religious. I am a dirty, filthy atheist to my core. But this changed me. The production that goes on with this record, it blew me away. It still blows me away. I listen to this and I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. How is this possible? It still trumps anything that comes out today. This is just straight up one of the finest production jobs I've ever heard on a song in my life. And I'll put a link to this song in the comments. I hope you're still checking my links. I try to do that. Always try to put a few links in there. Just an incredibly cool song. And the B-sides are very, very cool too. Butter Slut and Whistle While You Jerk. Whistle While You Jerk. Yeah, Whistle While You Jerk. You can't accuse Mark Bell of not having a sense of humor. Hick Techno. The best. The best there is. Ask LFO. Ask Mark Bell. Ask Luke Vibert. Ask Aphex Twin. The Hicks do it best. The Farm Boys know how to produce dance music. They just do. Growing up in those big cities, being influenced by all of your cool hipster bands, it doesn't mean a goddamn thing. You can grow up a hayseed using pitchforks to throw hay over your shoulder, milking cows, living out in the middle of bumfuck goddamn nowhere, and make better music than the hip. Mark Bell is living proof of that. Hick music, the most cutting edge music there is. Let the Farm Boys teach you how to do it. It's the music that is not being unadulterated by all of the trends that is always the best, always the most brilliant, always. You can live in your little hipster bubbles and produce your shitty music like LCD Sound System does, or you can choose this, truly evolved music that is unencumbered by all the bullshit. Right here. LFO. Freak. One of the greatest records you will ever buy in your life. Check this out. I'm going to show this. LFO, Peel Sessions. This came out, I don't know, when did this come out? Warp put out this series of Peel Sessions. Of course, there's no year. I don't know. This came out, what, a decade ago? Maybe not even that. Maybe 7 or 8 years ago. Here are the labels. Warp put out a box set of all of these Peel Session records. I didn't get them all because I just didn't, I didn't want them all. I bought this, and I bought the Aphex one, the Plaid one, the Boards of Canada one. I bought the ones from the groups I like. This is my favorite. LFO. I think I've been pretty clear. My favorite Warp artist is LFO. And this was the official last LFO release, I guess. I mean, this is posthumous. This came out after Mark Bell's death. And this was recorded, I think, in 1990. Yeah, October 20th, 1990. Peel Sessions. You know who John Peel is, right? Please tell me you do. If you don't, you've got a whole wormhole to dive down into. John Peel. This is good. It's just more LFO. What is there to not like? Good stuff here. Just wanted to show that as a curiosity. Because Sheath, yeah, it only had the one single. It only had this. Amazing. One of the best. And this was Mark Bell's swan song. It wasn't supposed to be, probably. Maybe he had more LFO up his sleeve, but the guy died. What are you going to do? This was his last thing as LFO. He did plenty in the decade after this came out, up to his death. He did plenty of production work. I would highly recommend you go look him up. And to name it all, it would take too long. But he did a lot of production work. That was mainly his thing. He just didn't really put out his own music anymore. He was into producing others. But the 3 records he put out as LFO were life-changing, for me at least. And that's why I wanted to do this trio of videos. There were 3 LFO albums, and they all mean a tremendous amount to me. They always will. The music itself is brilliant, but I think that LFO stood for a lot when it came to electronic music in the 90s, and he stood for a lot when it came to the Warp label, and he just means a hell of a lot to me in my life. I grew up at a time where this guy's music was new and fresh and changing genres and changing boundaries. He was breaking ground. And that's the kind of music that I get excited about. He had a mystique to him. He didn't do a lot of interviews. No one knew a lot about him. But everyone knew he was a heavyweight. And I think in a lot of ways, this guy produced some of the greatest electronic music ever made. I think generally he's a little underrated too. And I think that's because he just didn't put out a lot of stuff, and he remained to kind of stay hidden and do production work. And he didn't put out a lot of records, his own stuff. But that's why I wanted to do this trio of videos of LFO, because these guys are amazing. Mark Bell was amazing. Jez Varley's still around. He still puts out stuff as G-Man. He's still crushing it with his techno jams. I mean, I'm assuming that's why they split up too. G-Man never really stopped with the techno. He's pretty much dedicated to the 4 to the floor energy. Mark Bell he didn't do that always. He did do it, but he did all kinds of other stuff too. I'm assuming maybe that's why they split up. I don't know for sure. I don't know that. Does anybody know that? Why they officially split up? I don't. LFO, Sheath, Advance, and Frequencies. Check them all out. Try to go in order too. Start at the beginning. It's fun. I think it would be a fun journey for those of you who aren't familiar with Mark Bell and LFO. And check out his production work. I would highly recommend you listen to Bjork Homogenic. That is a killer album. Just sick stuff. Came out in 1997, and it still sounds years ahead of its time. And then he produced Exciter. He's produced other albums too, but those were the big ones, I think. Exciter musically is excellent. if there's an Achilles heel to Exciter, it's Martin Gore's songs themselves. They just aren't. They aren't great, but Mark Bell's production is on point and excellent. But yeah, this is the jam right here. Munman and Freak. Some of the best electronic music you'll ever hear. Until next time, later.